Hello everyone, this is In-Game Marsh with the little boxing of the offline product game review. This is Outward Definitive Edition for the PlayStation 5. To jump right into it, this physical copy here says it's just the base vanilla version of the game, so on this version it says 1.0. Now I know this is obviously not the base vanilla version of the game, which I'll go into in details in a second, but I want to point out immediately that there was an update available. This update was 5 gigabytes big. It will take you to version 1.05 since the time of making this video. Now, like I've mentioned before, PlayStation 5 does not allow us to look at update history on PS5 games, so there's no way for me to see what that 5 gigabyte update is that adds, alters, or changes or fixes throughout the experience of the game. Very disappointing. Hopefully Sony will fix that with a system update that they can include update history for PS5 games. But this Outward Definitive Edition does come with the base game of Outward, as well as the 2 expansions that they added to the game and DLC, which is all on disc, which is extremely nice. This is the most completest version you could possibly get for PS5 of Outward, which is a huge bonus, and I'm really glad that they get a complete physical copy of this game. But anybody who's noticed that this physical copy here is a Japan import physical copy. Sadly and oddly, this physical copy is the only way to get this game of Outward Definitive Edition for PS5. There's been other releases outside of Japan, but there's none of this PS5 version that is only available in Japan. Now, if you've noticed, this Japan version does support English as well as a multitude of other languages throughout the game. The game also does support English voice acting, English menus, English subtitles, and all this other stuff. So it's all in English. So again, it's very odd why this is only available in Japan for a physical copy. So it's very odd, but at least there is a physical copy out there. And as I said, it is the most updated version with everything on the disc. Now, if you don't know anything about Outward, like me, this was actually the first time I ever played it, you're probably going to immediately notice that the graphics are not that impressive. They definitely look like something that came out from 2008, maybe 2009 in terms of graphic detail. And again, that's not a big deal. I'm not a stickler about graphics. That means nothing to me, and I don't judge games on graphics. But overall, the game is more of a, explorational game. It's a huge open world kind of style game. You immediately start in the game with almost nothing. The story just revolves around you trying to pay back your blood price to the town that you grew up in, and it's not that hard to pay back the blood price, so don't panic with that. But you pay it back, and then certain events happen, and then you can choose a faction of what you want to go through. There's like 3 of them through the main campaign of the game, but the DLC adds an extra another faction you can join, so there's 4 altogether throughout the experience of the game. And you just basically progress and you unlock more gear and equipment. The game is a mixture of like a survival, mixture of Skyrim, a mixture of like Souls-like a little bit in terms of the gameplay mechanics. Now, it's nothing like a Souls-like game where you drop down souls or experience or anything like that. There's actually none of that in the game. The game does not evolve around killing enemies and gathering experience. The only way you can really level up in the game is that you have to go to a trainer who will train you in terms of unlocking your abilities like a shield bash or a sword technique or a spell or so on. And then eventually you use your skills to skill chain to unlock more deeper, richer classes. But you can only have 3 of those, so you can make sure you choose specifically which class you want to go into. As well as that, of course, there is magic in the game, like I said, and you have to sacrifice a bit of your health or stamina in terms of increasing your amount of magic you want to be able to use. So at the beginning, I recommend not investing too heavily in magic. Try to learn the mechanics of the game, as well as that the game, as I said, is a survival base, so there's like, in terms of weather, if it's cold or hot, you got food, you got drinks, and as well as there's a lot of infections in the game. You can get diseases and all this other stuff in the game. It's a very survival-ish style game. And in that field, they kind of went through this huge open world kind of run around experience where it can literally take you like 10 to 15 minutes if you're the furthest end of the map to run to the next furthest part of the map to get to the city. Which, if you've known me and you've watched this channel, you know I'm not a fan of huge open world games. I just don't like all that running. It's very aggravating. It's just not something I'm into doing. Now, I didn't beat Outward. I didn't 100% complete. I did every mission and then, but I did explore about 2 or 3 of the open world biomes they have. So I played a good portion of the game. I didn't experience any massive game breaking bugs. I did notice some like gameplay graphics flickering and stuff like that throughout the experience. Some audio issues sometimes here and there. Some screen tearing, some stuttering, minor stuff like that. The only big one I had was when I was trying to learn the game and I had to restart my save and start a new character and stuff. I did have the game lock up on me when it was loading up my new save for my new character, and the game save got corrupted for that newer character. It was the only time I had a massive issue like that. It was only at the beginning, and I was creating a new character, and that's the only time that's ever happened. So, again, it could happen throughout your progression. You could put 100 hours and the game corruption could happen. That's a possibility, but I never had it happen throughout my main quest I went through with my character, which I probably put about, I'd say about 30, maybe 40 hours throughout my experience, which anybody who's probably played Outward, that's barely touching the surface because there's a lot of content. It's spread out. It's a lot of running. There's literally an auto run button in the game. You push L3 and the character will auto run for you. And I literally had to push the auto run button, put the controller down, and watch YouTube videos as I wait for my character to get to the location I need him to get to. It can be tedious in that area. That's my biggest problem. I feel like the developers really overlooked what they had here by focusing on this huge open world survival aspect. I think that they just doubled down in terms of being more of an RPG with a mixture of that Souls-like gameplay and just but more of the Skyrim kind of style where you're exploring, grabbing items to make alchemy and stuff. Not spread out this huge world where you have to takes literally 10 to 15 minutes to get to a certain dungeon or a certain area. Again, that's some people may love that. They may think it's more immersive. I don't agree with it. I don't find that fun. It's just straight out irritating for me to have to run that far to get to playing the game. But again, one of the things that really stands about Outward is that the game does have a split screen mode, and the split screen mode does work pretty well. It works like you were playing like a single player experience, and I can't help but feel that this is the main core experience of the game. It's a lot like Monster Hunter, where you can play the entire game single player, but the game is intended in its better experience if you play multiplayer. And thankfully you can play 2-player split screen offline, and it worked really good. Me and my brother were messing around, checking it out, letting see what we can do and what we can't do offline, playing this 2-player split screen. And it worked pretty good. One player was able to run around as far as he wants. I could even be in a conversation with an NPC while he's still exploring around. Now, you can't go, leave a city and explore by yourself in terms of that. If you're both in the city, you both have to leave the city at the same time. If you want to go into a dungeon, you both got to go in that dungeon at the same time. But if you're in the open world, you both can run around the open world. Wherever you want to go, like the city. So it's really cool. They did it, I think, relatively well. If you're somebody who's been looking for a game you may want to play with your significant other, or your brother or sister, or maybe a friend, this could be a really good, enjoyable RPG to play 2 players with, which is extremely rare if you think about it these days in terms of being a split-screen RPG experience. I have to give them huge kudos and praise for that. That's why I'm saying graphics don't mean anything. If I can have a game that looks like this, a 2008 game, but have split screen functionality, and you can just pack more content in the experience, even though it's not high fidelity graphics, that's just more experience for me to enjoy. I'd rather have that than worrying about whether somebody has got a couple extra wrinkles or if his hair is realistic or not. Doesn't matter as long as there's actual game content to explore. Again, Outward was an enjoyable experience. It got ruined by what I consider a parasite to gaming right now, is huge open worlds, as well as that this whole survival mechanics they include in the game. I don't really feel like it really added anything to the experience. It just felt like this chore irritation that interrupted the flow of the game to make me have to stop to eat or drink, which, again, I know that some people really enjoy those kind of mechanics, and there is a game I played called Project Zomboid, which does it really well. But that's a huge, huge world. It's got tons of places you could explore and items and buildings and stuff like that you can go through. This doesn't really have that. So you spend a lot of your time just running, which takes a long time. And it's not the most intriguing in terms of those mechanics of survival. I think if they double down on focusing on the world, make it tighter, focusing with more dungeons, as well as focusing on the multiplayer, make it more fluid, as well as this making focus on kind of the mechanics and items and gear and stuff, I think they have a winner here. Sure, it's not going to be no Elden Ring. Sure, it's not going to be as big as Skyrim. But I think a lot of people would appreciate the offline split-screen multiplayer, as well as the enjoyment of what this game is offering in terms of being a more straightforward RPG experience. I think they really do have something here. Hopefully the sequel could come out if they make a sequel to it and they do double down to what I'm talking about. I think it's a really interesting game and one you probably should really look into having your shelf if you're interested in RPGs. You're maybe looking for something maybe a little bit more easier than Elden Ring. If you're looking for something you want to play with your significant other or friends or family, this will qualify for that as well. And if you're maybe looking for something maybe in the Skyrim kind of feel where you can craft, gather resources and stuff like that, craft alchemy, cook, make potions, and make gear, it's got a lot for it. I think they have something here, and I think it's maybe something you might want to add to your collection. In my personal opinion, I know though I'm not a fan of huge open worlds, and this game did irritate me with all the running, I still had fun. The moments when I finally got to the dungeons and I was finally exploring, doing all the battle, I was having fun getting gear, upgrading my gear, or just crafting and stuff like that, or upgrading my character and going to a trainer and stuff. I like the change. I think they did a good job with this one, and I think it's a hidden gem. I could definitely see this being like a top 10 PS5 or PS4 RPGs you never heard of, hidden gems, or underdogs and RPGs to look forward to. So like always, thank you all so much for watching. I will leave links down in the description if you're an instant copy. Like I said, it is an import. It's a Japan import. That's currently the only way to get a physical copy of this game for PS5. There are other ones on PS4, but I don't know exactly what those versions are on the disc or if they have updates or the DLC. But this one has both the main game as well as both DLC, and the game worked relatively well for me. I never really had any issues. A couple menu bugs and stuff like that. Like I said, graphical issues and a couple stuttering, and that one time when I was creating a new character, the save got corrupted. But I played like for 30 to 50 hours with my main save, and I never had an issue. So I say definitely pick it up. I think it's actually well worth your time to have this on your shelf since it's an RPG. It's only in Japan. It got split screen, and it was fun. Like again, I did think the game was fun. It just got ruined by the huge open world, but again, you may love that. So I'm going to stop rambling now. I'm glad I've covered this. I'm glad I found this physical game and I got it into my shelf. So thank you all so much for watching. Now I'll see you guys in my next unboxing video. Bye bye.